There were about 25,000 Amerindians when Columbus arrived in the region in 1502. The Chicos, as the Costa Rican natives were called, were broken into 8 different indigenous groups: the Kitarisi, Cortega, Maluku, Ribri, Cabacar, Guami, Barucu, and Tareba. The Guamis are the largest surviving native people in Costa Rica. In the 1960s, the Guamas, also called Govigays, immigrated from Panama to Costa Rica. Located in the Southern Pacific province of Putuneras, the Guamis still partake in their ancestral traditions today. Their language is Guami, but some of the chiefs and officers also speak Spanish. Today, the term mestizo is used to describe the majority of the Costa Ricans, which is any person combined with European and Amerindian descent. Okay. In 1540, Spain conquered the Chicos and organized the area into a colonial province. The Spanish were hoping to find riches in Costa Rica, as they did in other countries, but found little to nothing. At first, Costa Rica was impacted badly by Spanish. However, they learned to be independently successful. Like many other countries, bacteria and viruses actually came before the Spanish landed, and the population of Costa Rica was very small by the time the Spanish actually arrived and started to colonize. Because the Chicos fought colonization, the Spanish were unable to find much value in Costa Rican resources. Costa Rica was left to fend for itself. The lack of resources such as gold and silver made Costa Rica into a poor, isolated, and sparsely inhabited region within the Spanish Empire. Another important factor behind Costa Rica's poverty was the lack of a significant indigenous population available for forced labor, which meant that most of the Costa Rican settlers had to work on their own land. This lack of intervention contributed to the development of the rural democracy. Because Costa Rica was unable to stand alone against Spain, after the Spanish defeat in the Mexican War of Independence, Costa Rica was absorbed into the short-lived Mexican Empire proclaimed by Agustín de Iturbide. Following the collapse of Iturbide's rule, Costa Rica became a member of the United Provinces of Central America in 1823. This group of countries, Honduras, Panama, and Nicaragua, offered protection to Costa Rica from the Spanish. In 1838, the Republic of Costa Rica was established. As a result of the Spanish neglection, when Costa Rica goes its own way as an independent nation in 1838, its inhabitants are mainly poor farmers. Most of them were Creoles and Mestizos. Only a very small Indian population survives in this region, meaning that there is not an easy supply of cheap labor. The Costa Ricans are therefore independently minded, and they lack the social extremes of landed aristocracy and exploited peasants. These accidents of history prove of considerable benefit in developing their nation. Without Spanish intervention, Costa Ricans were able to establish their own cash crops and government. Though Costa Rica was not in many wars, the most impactful war was the Costa Rican Civil War that occurred in 1948. Jose Figueres, better known as Don Pepe, was an economist, a politician, and a philosopher who led the country into the Civil War that would only last 5 weeks but would take the lives of 2,000 people, mostly civilians. Figueres had been exiled to Mexico in 1942 after being seized halfway through a radio broadcast denouncing Rafael Calderón, who was president of Costa Rica from 1940 to 1944. Figueres formed an alliance with other exiles and returned to Costa Rica in 1944. He began calling for an armed uprising and arranged for foreign arms to be airlifted to groups being trained by Guatemalan military advisors. After the midterm elections of 1946, the opposition successfully demanded effective control of the electoral tribunal as a condition for participation in the 1948 presidential elections. Officially, Ulay outpaced Calderón by 10,000 votes, but Calderón's Victory Bloc party gained a great number of seats in the legislation than did the National Union Party. Calderón refused to acknowledge the defeat. The results showed Ulay the victor. This event was a big enough distraction in which Figueres was able to begin his long-planned war. In 1949, a new constitution was formed, giving women and people of African descent the right to vote. Currently, there is a dispute between Nicaragua and Costa Rica about the San Juan River border. The most recent disputes include interpretation about the scope and limits of Costa Rica's rights for free navigation.
As of July 2013, 4,695,942 people inhabit Costa Rica. Most of these Costa Rican citizens are mestizos and Roman Catholic. It is to this small extent that European conquistadors and colonizers impacted Costa Rica. Today, Costa Rica has a democratic Republican government with branches for legislation, execution, and judgment serving as checks and balances. This means that no one person is in charge or dictating, and therefore eliminates the presence of tyranny that trends in some Latin American countries. Costa Rica has even leaped ahead of the United States by installing its first conservative female president, Laura Chinchilla Miranda. Not far behind in education, Costa Rica has the highest literacy rate at 96% in Latin America, enjoying the most advanced and highest quality educational system in Central America. Costa Ricans therefore experience more opportunities by being educated and are thoroughly informed on national issues by fairly free media. The country as a whole may share information during any of the several holidays and festivals hosted throughout the year. These events inspire national identity and pride among the Costa Rican people. Augmenting the sense of a national identity is its current literature. Works have never been centered on socialist ideas, and Costa Rican literature lacks the romanticism, mysticism, and surrealism that neighboring American-occupied Latin American countries contain. Writers instead focus on overcoming one's own circumstances through social protests. Other arts, such as music, reflect heavy influences of Afro-Caribbean and Spanish culture. In this, Costa Rica has embraced the roots of its predecessors, both Spanish, Amerindian, and even African, to shape its cultural identity, rather than allowing the strife faced from forced foreign intervention to mold its culture.
Throughout the years, Costa Rica has become fairly independent. The country has made an attempt to rely on its natural resources rather than resort to foreigners for economic assistance. These resources consist of hydroelectric power, forest productions, fishery products, sugarcane, coffee, and much more. Although these materials are very unique and important to the country's economy, it would be impossible for the country or any country to depend on these resources alone. On August 5, 2004, Costa Rica signed the Dominican Republic Central American United States Free Trade Agreement with the United States. This agreement is creating new economic opportunities by eliminating tariffs, opening markets, reducing barriers to services, and promoting transparency. From that point, there has been a permanent partnership between the United States and Costa Rica. This is not surprising because Costa Rica and the United States have maintained a friendly relationship in the past due to one's mutual respect for the other's government, human freedoms, and free trade. Costa Rica's imported commodities consist of raw material, capital equipment, petroleum, and construction equipment, while the exported goods consist of bananas, pineapples, coffee, melons, ornament plants, sugar, and much more. As one can see, the Costa Rican export more goods than they import, therefore trying to maintain self-reliance. Tourism in Costa Rica also plays a dynamic role in the economy of Costa Rica. Costa Rica is one of the most visited places by tourists. One reason why tourists are so attached to Costa Rica is because of the ecotourism, which is tourism directed toward exotic, often threatened natural environments. Tourists are also drawn by the beautiful and unique sights in Costa Rica that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. A lot of these tourists can also come from America, and some eventually retire to Costa Rica because of its beauty and reputation for relaxation. The overall income of Costa Rica is about $6.5 billion, and the expenditures are about $8.5 million. This booming economy may be the result of the low poverty rate in Costa Rica. The unemployment rate of Costa Rica is about 7.8% out of 4 million plus people, and the amount of people under the poverty line is about 24.8% since 2012. This may seem like a lot, but this is fairly low compared to other Latin American countries. Overall, the amount of people in poverty in comparison to middle class or wealthy is much less. The wealth rate of Costa Rica is about 39% of its people.
In the 1990s, approximately 57,661 Costa Ricans have immigrated to the United States since 1931. This is a relatively small number compared to the 120,000 private American citizens that live in Costa Rica. However, United States citizens travel to Costa Rica for leisure. Such a low number of Costa Rican immigrants in America compared to its population suggests that immigration cannot be due to emergencies, whether political or social. In fact, Costa Rica hosts refugees from other Latin American countries. The motivations for Costa Rican immigration are interracial, international marriage, and specific or rare job opportunities not available in Costa Rica. The size of Costa Rican immigrants in the United States lends to the lack of big Costa Rican businesses in the United States. However, small entrepreneur businesses do exist. Meanwhile, in Costa Rica, also known as the Silicon Valley of Latin America, businesses such as Acer and Microsoft are hosted, creating a higher economic revenue for Costa Rica. More like partners, Costa Rican education lends itself hand in hand with the diplomacy concerning the United States. Secondary education grants students access to be trained academically or technically. It is for this reason that Acer and Microsoft station themselves there. Costa Rican technical workers are specially trained, which these American companies need, while big businesses from the United States boost the economy of Costa Rica, which was previously dependent on coffee, bananas, and cattle exports. Media within the United States tends to generalize Costa Rica with the rest of Latin America as a third world country, lacking sanitation, technology, and healthcare. Most Americans are even confused on the geographic location of Costa Rica, believing it to be an island. All of these assumptions are false. Costa Rica is a fast developing country located in the Central American landmass. The country has one of the world's best healthcare systems, ranking 36 in the world, while the United States is 37. Finally, big American businesses which occupy Costa Rica do so for the technical skill of the country's workers. Recently, inspiration has pushed Costa Rica to exhibit a new sophistication through its art, music, theater, dance, literature, and crafts. Sports also play a major role in Costa Rican culture, with soccer at the forefront of the most popular sports. There still remains a gap in Costa Rica's cultural complexity as compared to its fellow Latin American countries, since it lacked a unique cultural legacy that could spark a creative synthesis where the modern and the traditional might merge, as said Christopher P. Becker in the Moon Handbook's Costa Rica 5th edition. The only thing differing amongst Costa Rica and these countries, however, was a foreign presence, specifically American occupation and exploitation.